Alright, welcome to episode number 11 and the final Nasty Metal Podcast episode of 2020. And of course, since I am recording this on Christmas Day, Merry Christmas to all of my subscribers. 2020, everybody. Whew. Well, definitely, as far as good stuff that came from this year, besides some of the great music releases that came out this year when it comes to at least the genres of like rock and metal, there were some great albums and releases like EPs or demos and so on that definitely came out this year. And as far as other good stuff, since again, Merry Christmas to all of my subscribers, I definitely want to also thank you for all the support and all the, for sure, all the attention that I've been getting. I mean, it's not as much of a thank you than it's. I can't thank all of you enough, because right now, I definitely have to thank all of you, especially to all of my newer subscribers. I've just reached about 664 subscribers, and again, it all comes off from, for one, my review for Genesis 19 from Sodom. Since Sodom had shared that review on their page, I had gotten a lot of other subscribers, and the viewership for that video, it was surprising for that time. But then, of course, when I did for example, let me kind of get up my top 10 thrash metal albums of 2020, that even surpassed the viewership for the Sodom album. And who knows, it's also because of they went and shared the review, the list video on their page as well, and that even went up, because right now it's at 1.5k viewership now. And it's only been 5 days, and it's been reaching to extraordinary heights in viewership, and I can't thank all of you enough. And that's where a lot of my subscribers have been coming in, and it's really great. So I gotta thank you for all of that. Again, it can't be any more of a better Christmas gift, even though I know many people say that it doesn't really matter. No, it really doesn't matter on how many viewers or subscribers that I get, but I think it's cool, and I think it's definitely something I do appreciate, and that's definitely one of the other really good things that have came out of this year. And again, from either my friendship with Paul of Doomsday's Today Records, which again, thanks to Jim Harris of Silent Storm, and all the other people that I've been getting stuff from. That's all some of the great things that came out of this year. But as far as 2020 itself, I can't wait for it to end. This was a absolute dog shit of a year. Fuck 2020. When this year first started, it started out pretty good. But then by the whole the fear of this coronavirus, and then finally, since it gotten the number of deaths had been reaching so highly, is when all the whole lockdown stuff happened, which happened towards the end of February, early March, and that was it. Pretty much, that's when pretty much you can say goodbye to 2020. It already, the whole year fucked itself in the ass, basically. I know that was a little bit, graphic and very vulgar, but this has been a horrible year, and to be quite honest, I can excuse myself, or at least just some of my language, where I can be able to use it. This is not one of the very many ways I can just be able to, for sure. Right now, some of the words are starting to fall away from me, but to express myself on how horrible this year was. So yes, in many ways, this is probably the Fuck You 2020 podcast episode. Because fuck 2020. fuck it to all hell. I'm definitely looking forward to 2021. I hope all of this gets all sorted out in 2021, and we can all get back to being normal human beings. Start living normal. Start living our lives normally. Just doing our routine normally. I want to get back to all of that. This year just stripped all of that away from us, and I can't wait for 2021. I hope everything turns out a lot better next year. The only thing I definitely do hope still stays the same is the music releases. I hope we still get some great music releases. I definitely should also, I do feel like going into what albums or that I'm looking forward that comes out next year. But for right now, I definitely want to just end off by saying once again, this part of the video of, well, big middle finger to 2020. So, before I really get into, of course, some of my, again, the Q&A segment of the podcast, let's let me do some what albums I'm looking forward to next year. I know we've got what's kicking off next year. We've got Accept with this newest lineup, because at this point it's just Wolf Hoffman that's left in Accept, though Mark Tonillo is still on vocals, which is at least pretty good. I'm glad he's he's able to stick with them. This is probably the longest he has ever stayed, or at least any newer singer has ever stayed in Accept, and I think it's great. So I'm definitely looking forward to Too Mean to Die. I'm really looking forward to, and I'm more so curious, but oh God, and the Inspirations album from Saxon, which is their covers album. I'm interested in what they're doing. I'm really interested in hearing their cover of Problem Child from AC/DC. I'm definitely, and maybe their cover of Bomber from Motorhead. That's what I'm really curious on hearing, but definitely that's what I'm looking forward to. I know Alice Cooper's got his album, which is Detroit Stories, which might be interesting. What I've heard from it is, though, I have to say, kind of feels a little underwhelming, but I'm still curious what it's going to be like. I'm curious. It seems it's probably going to be mostly a covers album, too. It seems to be. So, I don't know what to really think about it. So, I don't know if I can say it's one I'm really looking forward to. I was when I heard it, but or at least when I heard he was going to release a new album, but what I've heard from it, I think the expectations ended up kind of dropping a little bit. So I don't know how I'm going to feel about Detroit Stories from Alice Cooper. I'm definitely looking forward when Scorpions drops their newest album, since all the hype I've been hearing about it from the band members and so on really has me a little bit hyped up to actually hear the new album, since they're going back to be more of a harder and heavier style, again, like Blackout and Animal Magnetism and Love Drive and so on. That's what they're apparently are going to, at least are focused on doing, and that's really what I'm looking forward to. Not that I thought the last couple of Scorpions albums are bad, just that when I really want to listen to Scorpions, I don't really try and pull for their softer material. I try to really go for the more harder and heavier stuff. Even the classic Uli John Roth era stuff. But since Uli ain't in the band, you can't expect them to go back to that sound. So the fact that they're going at least back to the early 80s material, the more that really hard and heavy material stuff, I'm glad with that. I think the last hard and heavy album Scorpions had ever released was Face the Heat from 1993. I thought that was a pretty underrated album from Scorpions, so I'm definitely looking forward to what they're going to do with that. They could and even topping that album in terms of the heaviness or the harder material. They could very well. So that's definitely one I'm looking forward to. I'm also looking forward to see if Bullet might end up releasing a new album next year. That's all really. As far as really when it comes to stuff, the only stuff that has been announced that's getting released in 2021, that's all that seems to be right now that has been announced. So that's all the stuff that I can say that I'm looking forward to. So there you go. That I guess that ends that portion of this video. So without further ado, I also should definitely point out, I should have did this at the earlier part of this podcast episode, that again, all of activity will resume as far as, I guess, normal activity will all resume beginning in January. So right now, this is the final video that is being posted here in 2020. So let's definitely get into the Q&A segment, since this is definitely going to take up a little bit more of a portion of this video. And so this Q&A, the first one I'm going to get to comes from Paul of Doomsday's Today Records. Yes, he actually sent in a suggestion for this episode. So, finally I get to respond to this one. Here it is. This is from him. This is Paul of Doomsday's Today Records. So, do a segment of best releases of all the Doomsday's Today Records catalog. Your top 10 from least to favorite. I think that would be awesome. Even includes some of the Eternal Darkness Creations releases. So thank you. And before doing this video, I went and thought about what I wanted to at least add to this list. So this is actually, I should have to point out, this is actually going to be two at least one of the two list suggestions. Because I'll get to the second one. That's going to be the bigger one. But this is the first one, and I think this is the easier to at least get through first before the other one, before the other top list suggestion for this podcast. All right, yeah, another I guess, not really an end of the year list, but another list portion for this channel. Since I've been putting out a lot of the end of the year list, and I put out the last one just this past Friday, which was the top 15 heavy metal albums of 2020. But this one, I definitely thank him for this. Thank Paul of Doomsday Today Records for this suggestion. So, what did I choose from my top 10 Doomsdays Today Records releases? Well, let me get into that real quick. First, I'm just trying to pull up the other question first before I really get into. Here it is. I got my other list portion up ready. All right. So, what are my top 10 Doomsdays Today Records releases? Well, since of course he brought up the idea of adding in a Eternal Darkness Creations release, and I added only one. The only one I can think of is the only one I've ever listened to so far. And I know I've got a box full of Eternal Darkness Creations stuff, and at least also other side projects or side labels from the guy that started the Eternal Darkness Creations label, which again is all dedicated to just really obscure stuff and some whether like do demos and so on. But I only added one. It's at the it's number 10, which is the Eternal Darkness Creations release for Nihilistic Outlaw Criminal Order, which was Paul's band. It's again the compilation between Reborn, Resurrection, The Calm Before the Storm release, which again it also even features like a different, like a live mix or so, or remaster one of the live EPs. But I think that this was a great compilation. All of these releases on one cassette. I think it was a very cool idea, long and lengthy, but it was a very great idea. And I think the way that this guy pulled it off was great. So again, the difference between cassettes and CDs is that you can actually the duration for cassettes has actually been longer. It's much longer than compared to CDs, which is really surprising, actually. But the way he pulled that off, it was pretty cool. So that's there. That's number 10. Coming in number 9, of course, is The Binding of Tyrants from Inversia, which is the second or first full-length album, I believe. I know I got another release from Inversia that the band had given me after I had reviewed this. But I thought this was a very cool sort of industrial-based black and death metal kind of sound, or grindcore. I think I definitely hear more black and death metal type of stuff on it. Again, I did a review on the album. I don't have to really talk too much, but this was, of course, at number 9 there. Now coming in number 8, of course, is In a Skeleton Pose from Bush Hog Suicide. Definitely these guys are like more on the stoner almost sludgy. I would say definitely more sludge groove metal portion. Very again inspired by the likes of either Crowbar or Pantera, especially 90s era of Pantera. Again, I thought it was a pretty cool. Release. So that was at number 8 there, and coming in number 7, of course, is the self-titled EP from Dogs of Scum. These guys are like more of a crossover thrash sound. Very again taking that sort of hardcore punk influence, but again infusing it with that sort of very thrashy feel. Again, it's got that late 80s sort of sound. Very cool. I definitely dug it. Again, this is one of those bands where they don't take the stuff very serious, but again, that's why I actually dig about it. So that's there at number 7. Coming at number 6, of course, is another Nihilistic Outlaw Criminal Order release. It's actually the Resurrection EP. For some reason, this is actually my favorite from them. This is just again short but sweet, but it just got all that chaotic, almost grindcore death metal stuff going on. Again, very little industrial or very atmospheric type of stuff. Very less of that. But I like it. I really think it's just fucking chaotic and it just rules. So that's there at number 6. Finally coming in at number 5 of this list is the self-titled Insanity's Reign album. This was on my top 10 thrash metal albums of this year. But this is just a great, very thrash metal album from these guys. Again, it's their debut album, but it's good. I love it. I definitely like this album a lot. So that's there at number 5. Coming in at number 4, speaking of some other great thrash metal, this actually would have been on my, I could have made it top 10 thrash metal releases, but this release right here came out in 2019, but it's Chains of Belmont with Toxic Hangover. It's their debut EP, and it was again released last year, and again, this is some great thrash metal, just great stuff all around. I really dig that one. Coming in at number 4, number 3. This is actually number 3, excuse me. But it's Volume 1 of Joe Buck Yourself. Again, sometimes titled Devil is on His Way. Definitely he's more of a rockabilly, very punk, almost I guess actually psychobilly, I guess is the best way. Really, I think it's the more preferred way to refer to the genre of Joe Buck Yourself. But he, of course, had been playing with Hank Williams III, but just definitely cool. This is probably my favorite of the 2 volumes that Doomsday's Today Records had released of Joe Buck Yourself. This is probably my favorite of the 2. Again, I can give an honorable mention to Volume 2, which is also great, but I think this is my absolute favorite of the 2. Just great, just stripped down, cool vibe. I really dig it. So that's there at number 3. Coming at number 2 is the Silent Storm EP. Yes, just great, solid traditional metal. Again, this is definitely one of the reasons why I ended up becoming good, or at least why I became a friend of Jim Harris. I know he had been following my channel a long time for now, but when he wanted to send me his EP for release reviewing, which is so generous of him, but this is where also out of him sending this EP is where I ended up become good friends with Paul of Doomsday's Today Records, because it was his suggestion that why I ended up getting all this promo packs and so on was from Jim Harris. Jim Harris was the one that contacted Paul of Doomsday's Today Records to have him send me a promo pack in the first place. And this is where I should definitely also bring up that because of in the past, Paul was very wary of giving out promo packs, because apparently the last time he had ever given out a promo pack, the person apparently didn't want to review any of his stuff, and that's where he pretty much had given up. So it was Jim Harris that pushed hard to want to try and have Paul send me a promo pack, since he had been very wary of giving out stuff, and I think he did a very good I think he made the right call, because of with me, I can review anything on this channel as long as you at least suggest it to me, and if it's something I really dig, and I will. And since he had went all that out of his way to really send in all that stuff, I definitely had to, and that's where I that's where I ended up getting the friendship with him, and again, all out of Jim Harris. So that's where I thank you a lot for this. For really introducing me to Paul of Doomsday's Today Records. So the fact that, again, this is one of the reasons why it belongs on this list too, the EP. Again, very great traditional metal, very on the raw side at times because of due to the budget and so on, but it's a good EP. It's good. It's great. Did a review on it, and I also reviewed the first full-length album from this year, The Fire Never Dies, which also made it onto my top 15 heavy metal albums of this year. Just great stuff. So that's our number 2. And finally, my number 1 favorite Doomsday Today Records release is The Earth Says Hello from Doug Stapp. Just great instrumental hard rock. Just great stuff, again, in the sort of vibe of, I wouldn't say Joe Satriani, but it's kind of there. It's got a little bit of a Ronnie Montrose thing going on, even a little bit of Van Halen here and there, but it's just good shredding hard rock. Just great stuff. I like it, and I became friends with also Doug Stapp, too. Just great. And I know that it's not really a real Doomsday Today Records release. It's more of a reissue, but I had to include it. So that's that's my number 1 favorite one. I also have it on CD as well. It's all great. So there you go. There's my top 10 Doomsday Today Records releases, with of course ones from Eternal Darkness Creations. So I guess in many ways 9, but I made it 10. It's 10. So there you go. So thank you, Paul of Doomsday Today Records, for sending in that question. That was a very cool idea for this one. If you have any other list suggestions for me to do on any of these podcast episodes, leave them in the comments section below, or even, again, send them through my Gmail account, since I always leave that, of course, in the comment, in the subscription, or the description box. I leave all that link in the description box below on where to send me the questions and so on. So great. So that's the first question. Finally, let's get on to the very last question. This one comes in from my good, probably right now my favorite subscriber. It's Storm Rider. So this is from Storm Rider. Hi there again. I got 3 questions. 1. After you did your top 10 all-time favorite albums, which again was part of I can't remember which podcast episode, but it's one of the last couple of ones I did. Might have been. So yeah, all-time favorite albums. I checked out Flick of the Switch, which that was one of my favorite albums that I definitely picked. Again, that was the AC/DC album that I picked, surprisingly. So, after I had checked out Flick of the Switch and was quite surprised by how good it is, I can really see why it's your favorite AC/DC when it's the one off the first albums of them that you have listened to. It has all the elements of great AC/DC album on it. So this makes me more interested in AC/DC. My question: can you give your ranking of the 3 AC/DC albums from worst to best in your opinion, and why? 2. In these darker months, I like to watch some great movies. Can you tell us your top 10 or more of your favorite movies of all time, and why? 3. You mentioned it already, but what do you think of 2020? What were the good things? I mean, of some great albums that were released, I think. And what were the bad things? I mean, of COVID-19, of course, people that passed away, that terrible Ozzy album with that Andrew Watt guy, etc. In your opinion, looking forward to your year lists. Take care, Storm Rider. Of course, he had sent me this question back on November 26th. And again, after my last, which was episode number 10 of the Nasty Metal Podcast. So that's when he had sent me this question, and finally I'm getting to this one now, because I saved it for here. Well, the answer to the third question, I've already did all of this. I answered all of this, I would say, at the beginning. As far as, I guess if I have to really say any of the quests, as far as other bad things, I don't know. Be quite honest, you can just sum it up that everything has just been bad this year, to be quite honest. Everything, I really can't really answer much of that, other than has been a bad year to begin with. So, I mean, yeah, great stuff. And as far as the new Ozzy album, I was not a fan of it. Of course, I did a review. I don't have to talk much about that one. That's why it was never added on any of my lists to begin with. So, and I never even mentioned it. So it's been I've went this long without mentioning the new Ozzy album. That was again, as far as the stuff, there really isn't much I can add to that question other than as far as on my end of things, it's just it's really this is the only thing that's really been keeping me occupied and keeping me at least sane through most of this year, is basically working on this channel and making it active. It's one of the few things that's made me, of course, also other really good things is my being a part of my brother's movie streams on SiteTube, which I really enjoy watching. That's other stuff that really keeps me going. I just wish the internet wouldn't fuck with me, but most of the other time when I'm trying to watch some of his stuff, because I gotta mess with a lot of crap just to finally get shit going. So that's all good. Yeah. So that's there at that really, that's all I can answer on for a third question. Now let's definitely get. I want to answer number 2 here. I want to answer a second question before I really get into my worst to best AC/DC albums list, which again I have all listed out, and that's gonna be very easy for me to get through. It's not gonna take that long. Some of it might. But I'm not going to try and take up all of this video talking about every single AC/DC album on my list. So there you go. But I do want to do this. In these darker, again, when he's, the second question being, in these darker months, I like to watch some great movies. Can you tell us your top 10 or more of your favorite movies of all time and why? I want to answer this question. As far as movies and as far as my 10... This one could be a little tough. It could be a little tough. But as far as just favorite ones, I mean, it's not in any particular order, but my 10 favorite films really goes from the first RoboCop film. It's a kind of a tie between that and number 2. Those are two that are just so dear to my heart because of I watched those two a lot as a kid, and it's one of those reasons why I also becoming so really interested in the action film genre to begin with, and at times sci-fi as well. That sort of combination between science fiction and just great 80s action. That was, I think, the best combination. It's why I ended up becoming a fan of that kind of mixed combo genre in a way. That hybrid genre between mixing action with other sort of genres like either horror, sci-fi, and so on. Just I like that. I like that kind of combination. It just adds up for a really cool, just a cool sit down and just really cool watch. That's all. Also, I love the first Terminator. I also can even add in Terminator 2. I love those two films. They go hand in hand. I definitely can't get tired of watching those two, especially if I'm watching that really long extended cut of Terminator 2, which I've got on DVD. I really like watching that. Again, I like the fact that when they add in the scenes that were left out, which I think in some ways really adds even more to the story, and it really makes the story seem a little bit more sense in some ways. It's just I like that cut the most of Terminator 2, but definitely I love Terminator 1. Predator is definitely one. I love Predator 2. I don't know if I can really make this at least a solid list. I don't know if I can make this a solid top 10 list, but those are definitely ones I really like. As far as other films, besides within the action genre, I like Reservoir Dogs. I like even, as far as other Tarantino films, I like his films as well. Definitely over the past couple of years, I've become more and more grown, to really liking his films to where I really can say he is one of my favorite film directors. Just again, Reservoir Dogs or, The Hateful Eight. I dig that. Those are probably the only two that really come to mind that I also really dig from his films, and the two volumes for Kill Bill. Those are really some of the ones I really can mention as well when it comes to his films. So that's definitely some of those I can add in. Taxi Driver or Goodfellas. Those are definitely two of my favorites. Even Mean Streets. I fucking like just some of my favorite Scorsese films. add into that list. This is almost enough to make a top 20 or top 25 favorite movies, or even top 30, because there's just a lot to really add in. But I'm just really naming some really great films, and there are definitely those that are really dear to me in many ways. The first Nightmare on Elm Street, I definitely can throw in there. Same goes with Dream Warriors. I can add in those two in there. Even I have a soft spot for the second one. I dig this whole part of some of this. I guess it just becomes very tough to really just add in because of just really naming some other ones off the top of my head. You know what's another one that really says have a really big soft spot, but it's cheesy in many ways, but it actually is the best one that I think did justice to at least the original manga. But I really like Guyver 2 Dark Hero. That's another sort of a really obscure one there, but that is probably my one of my other favorite ones as well. And it's where I ended up becoming a fan of the anime character anyways, just because of he was very much had that almost superhero quality to him, but also very comic book like. But again, even it made for a pretty decent, very cheesy 90s action film as well, and I fucking like it. I really like that one. I wish someone would do a newer take on that series and movie quality, because there's some great stuff that can make, again, for another great sort of action style film as well. I like that stuff. So, geez, that's all much I really can go off the cuff, and I can really add into there. That's all I can really add. Oh yeah, Cobra. I fucking love Cobra. The Sylvester Stallone film. I love that one. And Ricochet. That's actually my only favorite Denzel Washington film. Actually, is Ricochet. I really like that film a lot. So that's really ones I can really add into there. Also, I'm also even forgetting Death Wish. I actually like at least both the 2 or 3 Death Wish films to begin with. Again, I like Bronson. Definitely over the past couple of years, that's another actor that I've really become to more explore his stuff over time. I've grown to really accustomed into. So that's all I can really add into there. So that really answers his question there. So that answers number 2. Finally, the kind of shorten up a lot of this list, a lot of this answer, his question, not answer, but his question here is my least, from like worst to best, AC/DC albums list. So let's definitely pull this list up. Again, since AC/DC have released 17 studio albums, it's definitely. And I wanted to do a video of this, but to be quite honest, I think that this makes it more easier to get into, to get it out of the way. So here it is. From a suggestion of Stormrider, here's my top, the ranking all the 17 AC/DC studio albums. So coming in number 17, it should be no surprise. It's Rock or Bust from AC/DC. From 2014. Not that I thought it was a terrible record from. I enjoyed it when it came out, but again, it's become one of those albums where I least pull out when I'm in that mood for AC/DC. So it's not really my go-to album. I don't think it's anyone's really go-to album, but I thought it's not a terrible record, but it's far from my favorite. And again, I almost wanted to make this as a tie between this and Black Ice, which again, coming at number 16. I feel these two albums go hand in hand because I wouldn't say they're similar, but they just have a similar feel to them. There's some, the thing with Black Ice, it has 11 good songs on the album. At least 11 good ones, even decent ones. But compared to Rock or Bust, there's at least 4 songs I can pick out that I really like. But for Black Ice, since there's 15 songs, which is a terrible idea, I wish AC/DC didn't do that idea to begin with. They'll load their album with 15 songs. To me, a good AC/DC album, when it's at least up to at least 10 songs or even 11 songs, or at best 12, and the length of the album has to at least be 41 or 42 minutes, and I'll get to an album later on in this list here. But that to me is the sweet spot for AC/DC album. loading up your album with 15 songs just because the songs are short is not a good experience. And I think this is one of the reasons why I knock Black Ice a lot, why I knock it down so much. And it is one of my least albums I really pull out. I almost was very content on making this number 17. But when there's at least 11 decent or good songs on the album, and compared to Rock or Bust, which has at least 4 good or decent songs, that right there, you can tell by default Black Ice gets a little bit more of an edge up Rock or Bust. So that's at least there. So that's all I can go in for that. So that's there. So Black Ice number 16 and Rock or Bust being number 17. So coming in number 15 should be no surprise, Stiff Upper Lip. Again, not a bad album. I've become more and more generous toward this album. I've actually begun to like this one a lot more and appreciate this album more compared to the other 2 albums. But again, it's not my go-to AC/DC album. And again, there's some pretty good songs in this album that I really do like. But it's just not my favorite AC/DC album from them. It's just alright, the best I can say. It's okay, but it's far from their best album. And again, following Ball Breaker, which I've got a soft spot for, and I'll get to that album real soon here. It's just not a terrible record. But again, following Ball Breaker, I thought it was a little bit of a step down in some ways, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't think it was a bad album by any means, but not the strongest. But I do like it way better than Black Ice, and I like it a lot better than Rock or Bust. So that definitely says that. So that's their number 15. Coming in number 14, surprisingly, it's this low, but it's For Those About to Rock, We Salute You from AC/DC. I know, this is a whole list of AC/DC albums, but yes, the thing is, I do like this one, again, better than Stiff Upper Lip, but the thing is, when following up Back in Black, which again, I like Back in Black, though not my favorite AC/DC album, actually, you know what, that actually somewhat changed. Because again, I've listened, the thing is, when you go back and you're trying to put some of these lists together, sometimes it's one of the main factors why you put lists together is also when you're basing your list off of albums, of how many times you played them, especially when you're doing rankings of some of your favorite bands, especially albums from your favorite bands. And so you really also go by how many times you've played a album. And compare it to Black Ice, I played For Those About to Rock the least. I mean, there's a few good songs on here. I mean, I like Inject the Venom. I do like the title track. I do like Spellbound. I do like even Snowballed. I do like Night of the Long Knives. I even do like, even to some extent, Let's Get It Up. But even Evil Walks is okay. But I Put the Finger on You is okay. But that's about it. Care of the Devil is okay too. But for the most part, it's not my go-to AC/DC album, though I have been going back and pulling it out a little bit more, just because of it's been so long since I've listened to that album. Whenever I've for many years, it wasn't my go-to AC/DC album. But again, there was a times where over the period where I ended up becoming to appreciate more and more of the album, but still, it's far from my favorite from them. So that's why at least it's here at number 14. Number 13 is Blow Up Your Video from AC/DC. Now, this one was a tough one, because I would have put For Those About to Rock a little above higher. If this was me years ago, I would have put this one above Blow Up Your Video. But over time, I've actually somewhat I put Blow Up Your Video a little above For Those. And that's because of, I go back to when I first heard this album. I played it a lot. But the only part of the album that I really listened to a lot as a kid was the first half. Everything from Heat Seeker up to about Kissin' Dynamite. After that, it took me years to really appreciate that second side. The only song from the second side that I really liked was This Means War. This is a fast song. That's just an absolute fast song. That's almost the closest, I guess you could say, also AC/DC bordering on speed metal. Just because it's just a fast song. And it's a good track too. But other than that, everything like Two's up to about Nick of Time, or was it wait at the beginning? No, Some Sin for Nothing, all the way up to at least Two's Up took me years to really appreciate. Now I really appreciate most of that side. And then over years, I ended up also, when it came to the first half, I ended up becoming very disdain for songs like Go Zone and Mean Streak. I ended up becoming very disdain for those two songs, but now I actually enjoy them. So it's become over the years some songs that began to really grow on me. So that's why I end up putting it above For Those About to Rock. The only thing that's really bad about this album is the mixing and production. Horrible. You would have thought from them getting back George Young and Harry Vanda, when they got those two producers back, the guys who were behind the classic Bon Scott era albums, you would have thought they would have at least would have made it good. The stuff they produced for the Who Made Who album sounded pretty good. But where the fuck to happen with this album? It just sounds tinny. It really sounds like they took the recording was, they put the mics outside of a Air Force vent, or it just sounds horrible. If this is the one album I really would like to see Brendan O'Brien remix, or somebody remix, because it just sucks. The production sucks, and it does the songs no justice at all. So that's the only really big knock I can give this album. But other than that, the songs, I think there's some pretty good songs in this album. But that mixing and production, whoo, not very good. Especially when it comes to a band who's known for some really big and just great production. This is not it. This was not the shining moment. So that's their number 13. Number 12, Ball Breaker from Ace. Just Ball Breaker. Again, I've got a big soft spot for this album. I got a huge soft spot for Ball Breaker. Again, I don't know if I could say again, it's not really my favorite AC/DC album, but I like it. I think it's a very solid album from them. I think it's the last heavy one before I really get into any more recent AC/DC albums. And I think right there you should guess what you should. It shouldn't take any good guess to think which album I might be alluding to. But Ball Breaker, I like this album. I don't need to talk too much about it, but I do like it. I've stated very many times on this channel, I think it's not a bad record. I think it's a little underappreciated. But again, it's not a bad album. Again, the only knock you can give it is it's far from Brian Johnson's best performance, but I think his very horsey and very raspier voice on this album, which really you can tell took a toll after The Razor's Edge, I think actually adds to the charm of the album than actually taking away anything from the album. It actually adds something to it. So that's one of the reasons why I actually appreciate this album more and more over time. But it is definitely one of the first AC/DC albums I ever listened to. It was released on the year I was born, 1995. So that's one of the many reasons why I've got such a soft spot for the album. So that's there at number 12. Coming number 11 is actually the only Bon Scott era AC/DC album that's this low, but it's the original Australian debut, High Voltage. Yes, I'm the American version, which is more of a comp, is not on this list. But I am adding in the original Australian debut, which is their real debut album, High Voltage. Which again, the track listing on this album, for the most part, really didn't make up the actual High Voltage album that was released here in the rest of the world. Again, what made up of the American or the more worldwide version of High Voltage was TNT, with only 2 songs from this version of High Voltage that made it on, with being She's Got Balls and Little Lover. The rest of the stuff ended up being on 74 Jailbreak, and the last 2 ended up being on Backtracks in 2009. That was really fine. That's the rest of the stuff from the album that ever made it here, made it worldwide. But I think, again, it's not a bad album at all. It's just surprisingly, when you think of AC/DC, you wouldn't think that they would be in that sort of list when it comes like Saxon and Judas Priest, or except where their debut felt different compared to the rest of their output. But the thing is, AC/DC was one of those bands where their debut album was definitely different sounding compared to a lot of their other albums after this. The only hints you get at that classic AC/DC sound is on songs like She's Got Balls or Stick Around, and even Show Business and their cover of Baby Please Don't Go. Those are really the only hints you can get at some of the classic sound. It sounds like Soul Stripper, You Ain't Got a Hold on Me, Little Lover, and even for another one I also have to bring up, Love Song, their only ballad they've ever done. Those are really the ones that are so different from a lot of the other AC/DC songs that came after this album. So those are the really difference between this and a lot of that. So it's an interesting album. It's very 70s too, because that's the one thing I have to say about AC/DC is they were definitely from the 70s, but they didn't really sound 70s. Again, they had a sound that ended up becoming more and more common in the 1980s than really in the 70s in places. They were a little ahead of their time, alongside either Judas Priest, in terms of just creating a sound that would just catch on in the 1980s. A lot of the glam rock or glam metal bands or hair metal bands or sleazy sort of hard rock bands, and even some of the new wave or British heavy metal bands really decided to take a lot of what AC/DC did, and they just went and really took it further. Really, those are the bands you really can tell where they really, where AC/DC sound really caught on the most. But in the 70s, it was either stuck in the sound like Black Sabbath, or it'd be whatever you hear from Moxie, from Canada, or April Wine, or Blue Oyster Cult. You know, those were just, for example, even Thin Lizzy was very 70s sounding for its time period. But AC/DC was, I think, the rare band where they didn't really sound 70s. Even though being from the 70s, they didn't really sound like the 70s. They had a sound that became more and more common in the 1980s and throughout. So that's kind of the way I really look at AC/DC sound. And with this album, High Voltage, it was the most 70s sounding album from AC/DC than really anywhere else. So that's here at number 11. Finally, let's get to the top 10 portion of this list, and everything of this should be no secret of what albums are here, but might be a little bit surprising. But these are my top 10 albums. So number 10, The Razor's Edge from AC/DC. I love this album a lot. This was definitely one of those albums where I grew up listening to quite a bit. Again, one of my favorite of at least the Brian Johnson era. For the last time, I think this was probably the last really classic sounding AC/DC album before I really get into the album after this. But this is a good album. Definitely, I got a lot of the memories for this album. Just big nostalgia kick when listening to this album. So that's our number 10. Number 9. This is the only, and it should be no surprise, but this is one of the only recent AC/DC albums that has actually made it into this top 10 list. If I did, I probably would have either chose, I could have chose any other album, but I really went with this one. I'm surprised on how much I've listened to this album since it came out very recent, but Power Up. And the thing is, it's crazy that it's actually above The Razor's Edge. You would expect this to be number 10 if I were to put this in my 10 list, but I put it above The Razor's Edge. There's just something about this album that just sounds a lot more classic sounding compared to any of the past couple albums since Ball Breaker. And at times I even like it better than Ball Breaker. I think in many ways this really brought back more of a classic sound. But the thing is, I can say it's probably the first heavy sounding AC/DC album since Ball Breaker, because there's a heaviness to some of this album in a ways. And when it comes to Brendan O'Brien, this is, I think, of the 3 albums he has produced where it actually sounds different compared to either Black Ice or Rocker Bust. It just has more comparisons to the classic 80s period. And here and there, maybe little hints of the Bon Scott era here and there in terms of the production, the guitar tones, especially on like Rejection. I get a big Bon Scott era feel. This wouldn't have been so bad. It wouldn't have been if it had been on Highway to Hell. It just has that feel for some reason. And I think it's, again, I didn't want to make that kind of comparison in the first place, but the more times I've listened to this album and I listened to like a song like Rejection, it just has that very Highway to Hell kind of tone to the song. It's good, and I like most of the sound. So again, it's our number 9. Number 8, Back in Black from AC/DC. I love this album too. Again, I stated in my Album of the Week video for this album that this wasn't my favorite AC/DC album, but over time, I've been playing this album a lot now, and since getting it on record last year, I've just, it's becoming one of those AC/DC albums where I really can listen to. I don't know. I guess in some ways it really came back on me. Again, I can't tell you many of the reasons why, but something about this album is just really grown on me more and more over time. Again, I played a lot as a kid, but over time I got sick of it. But now I'm back to really liking the album. Again, I don't know if it's not my favorite Brian Johnson era AC/DC album, but it's a good one, and it's again good enough to be in my top 10. So that's there at number 8. Number 7, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap from Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. I have to say from AC/DC, because again I just got done doing a lot of those end of the year lists. But this is a good album. Again, it took me years to really appreciate Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. But ever since getting a copy of the Australian version of this album, I became more to really like this album more and more, to where it's now, again, it's one of my favorite AC/DC albums. So again, just a great album overall. So that's their number 7. Number 6, Fly on the Wall. Again, this was one of my other absolute favorite Brian Johnson era AC/DC albums. Every time when people talk about it, AC/DC were ever metal or they were ever not metal, this and that, you always get that discussion. But if you were to ask me, I feel Fly on the Wall might be the most metal sounding album from AC/DC. That's just because of from the production and the rawness of it, and just the way the songs are just played. There's a little level of just loudness, and in terms of just angriness to some of this album, that it actually almost ends up, you could put this album on, and then afterwards you can throw on a Rod's album or a Saxon album, and it actually will go hand in hand. It just has that very almost metal, 80s metal production to the album, to where it actually almost at times is a very metallic sounding AC/DC album. Again, I've got such a big soft spot for this album. I really do like this one. I know a lot of people complain about the production, but I think it adds to the overall charm of this album. So that's there at number 6. Number 5, TNT. Again, this made most of the basis for the worldwide version of High Voltage. But I like this album. It's a classic through and through. I don't have to say too much. I mean, it's a long way to the top, and TNT, the title track, all great songs. So that's there at number 5. Again, this guy in many ways begins the top 5 portion of this list. But number 4, Flick of the Switch from AC/DC. I know you'll be like, why is that higher than TNT? Again, this was one of the earliest AC/DC albums I ever listened to. I didn't get to hear at least the American version, I guess you can say, of TNT, which is basically High Voltage, the comp version, until many years after Flick of the Switch. But Flick of the Switch was one of the first albums I really fell in love with. And again, just a classic album in my opinion. So that's their number 4. Number 3, Highway to Hell. I don't have to say too much about it. It's a classic. Number 2, Let There Be Rock. Just another, again, my dad had purchased Flick of the Switch and Let There Be Rock on CD on the same day, and they had showed up, and in some ways, I feel like Let There Be Rock and Flick of the Switch almost go hand in hand, just because of how I got to hear these two albums on the same day. So that's why it just feels interesting, and it feels weird at times, but that's the way it happened. I listened to these two albums on the same day, and it was that kind of difficult which album I liked more. Again, I got the really good taste of the Bon Scott era on Let There Be Rock, but I got a good taste of the Brian Johnson era on Flick the Switch. I know everyone will pick Back in Black, but I feel in some ways that because why I can almost at times feel Back in Black is somewhat overrated, but I can't deny the fact how many times I would also play Back in Black. But Flick of the Switch was the first album of the Brian Johnson era where I really fell in love with, even though I do, again, soft spot for Ball Breaker, but Flick of the Switch was the second real Brian Johnson era AC/DC album that I really was able to really just listen to full, just from start to finish. Just a good album in my opinion. But Let There Be Rock, just a classic album, and definitely one of my favorites of the Bon Scott era. But finally, number 1, Powerage. It's just a classic. I really, it seems like over time, everyone has began to pick Power Edge as their favorite Bon Scott era AC/DC or just their favorite AC/DC in general. And to me, it is my favorite AC/DC in general. This is, to me, what I have to say really took them even further. There was a little level of maturity on this album compared to some of the other AC/DC albums. Because, especially from the Bon Scott era, there's just a certain level of, seriousness on this album that I think has ever been let. And it's also probably the most interesting because a lot of the AC/DC tropes are subdued in some ways on the album. But again, when you got like songs like Riff Raff and Sin City and Kicked in the Teeth, and Down Payment Blues. Oh God, just good songs all around. So that's really my absolute favorite AC/DC album. So there you go. That answers all the questions that Storm Rider had given me. Thank you for sending me that question. I'm thankful to add that in. I'm thankful to answer your question. So there you go. I guess in many ways it ends the Q&A segment of this podcast episode. Where else do I go from here now? I guess I don't know what else I can. I can't really talk about too much about wrestling other than I'm actually very surprised that Sting went over to AEW. I thought he wouldn't have went over there, but I guess he had been so disappointed with his run when the WWE and his relation, at least his dealship with Vince McMahon, that I think in many ways it soured his. It soured his time in over there, so I can see why he decided to also jump over to AEW, but I thought he wouldn't have, but he did. And it's interesting. It's different, though I know it's become a little bit of a topic. Are they overusing him? Because the first time they had him, that was some of the biggest ratings they had ever hit. The following week, even bigger ratings. Now they've dropped. Probably, again, it's the discussion of, are they overusing it, or how are they using them? That's the only other thing. So, but I'm still interested in where everything's going. So, and of course, the stuff between them and Impact, it's different, but it's actually become very interesting. Again, one of the most interesting things to come out of wrestling at this part of 2020. And again, that's one of the good things also about 2020. They also finally answer the rest of your question there, Storm Rider, is wrestling. I actually have been more and more interested in. It's one of the few other things that's kept me occupied during this year. And again, thanks to AEW starting up, and then of course what WWE have been putting NXT on USA, I feel it creates a really interesting contrast. And of course, I've been going back and watching Ring of Honor, and there's some great stuff over there. And of course, finally, towards the end of the year, with NWA doing Shockwave, there are 4. Right now, it only lasted for at least 4 episodes, because apparently it's on a season finale. But they were just airing all the matches that never got aired on YouTube, that were aired for other platforms, especially pay-per-view, that they did early this year, or mid this year. On there, and I really enjoyed that. And of course, MLW, there's some great stuff I really love. MLW is my absolute favorite wrestling company here in the modern times, because I just everything about that company, I feel the quality is just great, and it definitely in some ways has more of that old school quality in some places. Of course, NWA Power, or NWA these days, it's just, again, that classic old school wrestling feel, but I like it. Just great storylines all around and great wrestlers, so that's about it. So that pretty much ends this episode. That's the final Nasty Metal Podcast episode of 2020. I had a good run on this year. I'm definitely hoping to make keep up this quality going into the next year. But I'm looking forward to all of next year. Let's definitely say goodbye to 2020. And say hello to 2021. See you all on the other side, people. See you all on the other side. This is Nasty Metal Production saying, I'm out. And once again, I'll see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone. Everyone, Hope you all had a great Christmas. I hope all of you have a great New Year's. Take care.